Welcome. In this video, I'm going to be doing a solo playthrough while teaching the game of D6, Dungeons, Dudes, Dames, Danger, Dice, and Dragons with Dale. So down at the table, getting ready to start here. If you want to see how everything got set up here, be sure to check in the description below for the setup video. We have our hero here that I'll be using as a slayer. We've got everything set up. So the first thing we're going to do start of our turn is a spawn and gather. And since we're in solo mode, we're going to do that twice. So we're going to roll a d10 for a monster, along with a d4 for our gather board. So we are going to get a monster at location 7. We are getting a Hellhound up in the wasteland. And our 3 is a wild on this. So if we roll a 1, we're going to be dealing with our companion. 2, we get 2 coins. 3, we get to choose. And 4 is an alchemy. And I'm going to use the alchemy to get us some fair monsters. Lure 1 monster into your space from any other space. Then a second roll. We're going to get a monster in location 1. Which is going to be a Minotaur. And this symbol gives him +1 if he's in a dungeon location, which is currently at the den, field, wasteland, and the bay. And we have bounties at the bay, field, and North Point, which we're definitely going to want to get to so we can extend our playtime. We rolled a 1 here. So that means we're going to get our companion. It states that if we roll a 1, we can deploy him to our location, which we will go ahead and do. Then we can start with our actions. So once again, for free, we can buy consumables, play cards, drink a potion, buy advantage cards at a cost of 2 each, perform a skill, fight an enemy. And then our 3 actions is move 1 space, gather, which is rolling a d4 for this chart, or hunt an enemy, which we will choose a random guy out of this bag to bring into our location. So we will spend 1 action to go ahead and move in with this villain. We've got 2 options here, basically. We can choose to fight, or if we want to do any other action, we have to do a stealth action or stealth check. So we need to roll below whatever our stat is. So on a d6, we'd have to roll less than that if we wanted to keep moving, but I'm good with fighting. So this Minotaur is going to get a d10, and our monsters use the black die. We'll be using blue dice. We get a d6, and because of our bird friend, we get a d4 on that. We could also go in with a d10, getting +1 to combat. We're just going to go with our basic weapons here. So 4 for a monster. We ended up with 9. So he is defeated. When a monster is defeated, we've got 3 options. They can be used as part of a bounty. We can spin it that way. We can spin it down here if it meets one of our special hides or wild hides. We're going to go ahead and put the Minotaur on our hide board. So we are 1 out of 15 on hides that need collected. In addition to beating up a monster, we get 2 money, which I'm going to immediately spend to get an advantage card, which is going to get us, see, I'll use these mini spikes to add a little more damage, so we get +1 to combat roll. So we can use this after dice rolls if needed. And because of our strength stat, we can hold 4 of each card type. And I'll take a second action to move into the harbor. Then I'm going to take a third action to go ahead and hunt. So we'll go ahead in here, and we have found a werewolf that gets a d10 +1. And I believe that's a trail there, but we don't have any terrains. And once again, we're just going to go with our base dice. So the werewolf got a 5. We ended up with a 4 and a 4. He is a +1, so he is a 6 to our 8, so he is defeated. Can't use that for any of our bounties. So we'll go ahead and put the werewolf on this one. And collect 2 coins, and go ahead and spend those 2 coins for another advantage card, getting a Stone Teeth Swinger, which allows us to roll a D10. Now, unfortunately, if we use one of these cards, we lose the assistance of our bird. And with no more things to do, we'll go ahead and end our turn, so we'll reset that. In a normal game, this would mean since we successfully completed all 3 of our actions, we would get 2 heroic quest cards. But in a solo game, instead of heroic quest cards, we get heroic benefits. So we'll roll a D8, which is a 5, which gets us some liquid victory. So we can double our next combat roll. And these are one-time use. If I want to do that, I'll take that off. Then we will go ahead and turn our dial to turn 2. Start of turn. Monsters and Gathering. So we get a monster at location 3, which is down in the field. So we've got a Plant of Eden. So it's 3 plus a number of other friends out there on the board. And unfortunately, when I set this up, we already drew 2 others. We do get a wild, which I'm going to use that as a potion to get a Return to the Village potion. And our next roll is going to be a 4 and 4. So down at Brarrick's Land, we get a Hellhound. And we get Alchemy. So unfortunately, we've already got our 2 potions, so we can either move this to something else or keep it as is. Our first action is going to be to move. Of course, whenever we take an action, we can move our companion. We're going to choose to fight, so he's going to be a 3, 4, 5. We don't roll with him, that's just his base number. So with our 2 dice, we have a 6, so we have beat him up. He is not a hide, he's a special, so we'll get our 2 coins, but he goes right back to the bag. As you can see on the back of these 2 coins, and in he goes. And with our 2 coins, we'll hold on to that for now. We'll do a second action to hunt. And we found a mushroom. So with that, we'll immediately go into a fight. It gets a D4. And we get our regular D6 plus our D4 because of our companion. It ended up with a 4. We have a 2 plus 2. And ties go to the monsters. So at the moment, we're losing unless we do something. So what we will do is use these mini spikes to add a little more damage. So +1 to a combat roll. So this will be discarded. We'll be up to 5 damage. We'll get rid of this little guy, which will get us 2 coins. And our third hide there. Then we're going to hunt again and hope we can get something blue to come out after us. Nope, just another goblin. So that was our third action. But we can go ahead and attack. So he's going to be a D6 plus 1. And if we were in the mountains or hills, he'd get another +1, but we're just in a dungeon land. So he's a D6 plus 1. Ended up with a 4. We have a 3 and a 1. He turns up to be a 5. So we need +2 to defend on that. So we're going to spend 2 money to draw an advantage card. So you've got, I've thrown everything I have at it. Well, almost everything. +3 combat to roll if you have at least 3 coins. We have at least 3 coins. We don't need to spend them. So we'll go ahead and use this card to add 3 to our combat roll, which will take us up to 7. So we've defeated a goblin. Put that down here. Gather 2 coins for defeating it. We'll go ahead and end our turn, resetting our actions. Do our heroic benefits with a D8. Getting an 8, which is personal skiff. While in the harbor, you may move to any other space but the village. Then we turn the dial, which hits rolling on the event table, which is a D100 roll. So we just rolled a 28. So we'll grab our player's manual, turn to 28, and see that we've got sleeping booty. All right, a very big, very shaggy something guards a large stash of gold. If you're sneaky, you may be able to snag a few coins while it sleeps. If you're not, well, the good news is that the beast is too large to be very agile. The bad news, it doesn't have to be. It has a fire-spewing sword, a marksman's aim, and a deep loathing for gold thieves. So we get to choose. We can either ignore the sleeping creature or roll for stealth. If you succeed, collect 2 gold coins. If you don't, lose an HP. Well, our stealth is a 4, so we'd have to roll a 3 or less on a D6, which we did pretty good on our initial stats. We're already looking good in money, so I'm just going to let it be and move on. But now we are in a hunter's moon. So during a hunter's moon, all monsters get +2 to their die rolls. All right, so we will bring out a monster at area 9. Getting a werewolf in the swamp. 4 is to alchemy. We're good with where they are. So now we get a monster at 7. And we get a spider. A D8 +2, and these guys have some poison on them. And he's in the wasteland. And we rolled another 4 there, so alchemy doesn't do anything for us unless we want to change, and we're not going to. Got one more turn after this one, so we really need to cash in some bounties. But nothing came out in the field. That was blue, so we need to get to North Point and take on some beasts, which is here, or get to the bay and take on some poisonous monsters. So the bay's out of reach for now. What we're going to do is spend an action to move. One of the additional things we can do is rent a horse, play +1 for movement. That just applies to us, not our companion. So we're going to spend the gold so we can move 2 up to North Point. We'll have a bird fly down to the den. For our second action, we're going to hunt. For the bird's action, we'll have him move in our spot. And hunting, we find a knoll, which is one of the monsters we can deal with. So it's a D6 +2, and he would get +1 if he was in a forest, but he's not. We will go ahead and spend 2 money for an advantage card. It would have won if my weapon weren't on fire, so +3 to a combat roll if needed. We're just going to use our standard. It's the D6 plus, well, that's right, it's going to be +4 because of the hunter's moon. We're just going in it like this. So he's +4, so that's going to be up to a 7 for him. So we'll just take that off and mark that for us. We are up to 6. And it looks like our weapon is going to be on fire to give us +3 to that combat roll. So we're going to destroy the monster. Get 2 coins. We're going to collect the bounty. So a big hairy beast mated with my dog during the last full moon, and now I have a whole litter of man-eating monster pups. The neighbors are less than pleased. So we're going to collect a bounty that we need to turn back in at the village so he can give us more time. This goes back in the bag. And when we collect on a bounty, we get another monster coming out, and unfortunately another Plant of Eden. And that is going to Area 3, into the fields. But we do get to replace our bounty. So now we need to be in the pass with a beast. And the pass is way over here. So we're just going to hunt for our third and final action. Bringing out a mushroom, so that's a D4. And if we lose this fight, we're going to get poisoned, which takes one of our stats down by 1. So it's going to be D4 plus 2. We're just going in with our regular bird and regular weapon. So it's going to end up with a 5, but we're up to 7. So the mushroom is defeated. We get 2 coins. We already have a mushroom up on our board. So we're just going to use this as a hide. Since it doesn't match one of our specialty hides, we'll put it on the wild side. Then we're going to play a potion, return to the village. That's not an action, so our bird stays where he's at. While in the village, we can collect on our bounty, which will move our time counter a little bit further. Some other things we can do in the village. Once we go there, we, for free, regain lost hit points. We're already at full health. We can refresh a skill marker for 1 money. So if we had used any of our skills, we could pay $1 for a coin to get it back. We can empty our pack, which is what we just did. We can use the Fountain of Youth. We can spend the gold to roll to raise a stat, which basically we take a D6, roll it, and we can change one of our stats if able. Or we can just go to the training camp and spend 2 gold to raise a stat by 1. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to spend 2 to take our strength from a 4 to a 5. Then we will spend 2 more to take it from a 5 to a 6. So now we can hold up to 5 advantage cards, and we win ties in combat. And now we will officially end our turn. Get our heroic benefits, rolling a D8. So that's a 4. So we can make a free stat roll, which I might as well just, well, I guess beginning of our next turn we'll do that. So we'll turn our dial. Now we're to round 4. We'll start with our free stat roll. So just rolling a D6. We don't have to choose. We got a 5. So we will move our stealth from a 4 up to a 5. Well, I guess before we get to that, I forgot our spawn and gather twice. That doesn't change anything. All right, we're getting a monster at 2, and we get to bring our bird back wherever we want, which I don't think it's going to matter, but we'll go ahead and do that. And our monster goes on area 2. So we found a mummy. That's a D8 plus 2. Gets another plus 1 if he's in a dungeon, but no dungeon there. Then for the second one, we get the advantage again, and since he's already in our space, that just gets us 2 coins. And all that is listed on the board here. So if it's already in your space, gain 2 coins. But we get a monster at location 9, which is over in the swamp. And we found an owlbear. So we're going to start off with a movement with the assistance of a horse. We'll move our bird into the thick brush. We'll move through there into the harbor. And with a mummy, we'll go ahead and spend 2 coins to get an advantage card. So a throwing dagger, D6 and ranged. The range just means if we fail the combat, we don't take damage back. I think we are going to go ahead and swing at the mummy with our anvil hammer. D10 plus 1 to combat. And the mummy is a D8 plus 2. So he turns out to be a 5. We turn out to be a 7. We've killed ourselves a mummy, which will get us 2 coins. And we've got that one taken care of. This will go away. We'll spend 2 coins to get another advantage card. So Bone Breaker, which is a D8. Since we're in the harbor, we're going to jump on a boat, which will let us go anywhere except the village. We're going to take that boat on down to the bay. Then we will use our Fairy Monsters to lower a monster into our space from any other space. We're going to bring in the Spider, which is a D8 plus 2. And I think I'm going to use our Throwing Dagger, a D6 and its range. So if we fail this, we won't take the damage from that. And I'm going to go ahead and use our ability to double our next combat roll. So it ended up with a 5 plus 2, so it's up to 7. And we're 4, but we're doubled, so we're up to an 8. So we have defeated the Spider, so we're going to get 2 money. And collect on our bounty. So the Spider goes back in the bag. And I end up with a Minotaur. And he will be showing up at location 7 in the wasteland. Whoops. We'll get a new bounty. So now we're looking to be in the harbor to take on beasts. I'm going to spend an action to move into the pass. Then I'm going to attempt to hunt. Since I'm doing an action in here, I need to pass a stealth check. So I need a 4 or less. I got a 1. So I am bringing in another one of those guys, Plants of Eden. All 4 of those are on the board. So we're going to spend 2 coins to get an advantage card. Getting a Dagger of Accuracy, it's a D6 with 1 free reroll. And since we did take an action, we can have our bird move. I'll go ahead and spend another 2 to get another advantage card. So we've got a Star of Heliodoro, so it's a D12 and ranged. Well, we can choose to fight in any order. So this is going to be a 3, 4, 5, 6. So we'll go ahead with our, well, we need a 6, and that's just a D6. We will go with our D10 Stone Teeth Swinger. Needing a 6 or better, or 2. So instead, we're going to use our Berserker skill, +4 to your combat roll, lose a hit point. We'll just put that back in the village. So that takes us up to a 6. And we win ties. So we'll get 2 coins for that. And he goes back in the bag. We'll spend those 2 coins for another advantage card. Finding our Father's Whip, D6 and ranged. So now we're on to fighting the Leech. D6 plus 2. I think we'll break out our D12 for this one. All right, we got a 12, we got a 3. So this little guy goes away. And we get 2 coins. Nothing else to do. We'll go back to our rest. Roll up on our heroic benefits. D8's going to give us the ability to use the harbor. And this is our last turn, so we need to turn in a bounty, or else we're done. So spawn and gather, do that twice. So monsters coming out in area 5. So we're getting a mummy down at the den, and he will be getting a +1 because of the environment there. And we'll get an alchemy, so we'll go ahead and get returned to the village for free. And our second roll, we can bring him to our space, but I'm going to choose not to. We'll get a monster in area 6. North Point gets... Keep drawing those things out. That's hurting us big time. So my first action, I'm going to go hunting. See what we can find here. We find a skeleton. And I'm going to use our animal handling while hunting, send the hunted monster to another space and hunt again. We'll send him to the harbor. And we found a gnoll, which is a beast, which is what I want there. So he's a D6 +2. We are going to use our dagger of accuracy, so it's a D6 with a free reroll. So of course he got a 5 +2, so he's a 7. We get a free reroll. So we're a 6 at least. And we'll use brute force. +1 to your combat roll, so 7 on 7, and we win ties. We will take him, collect a bounty. He goes back in the bag. Next monster coming out is a flesh leech. And he will be going to area 8. Oh, he's back in there with us. So we're going to spend 2 money to get an advantage card. Getting a blowgun. So it's a D4 +10 to combat. Roll if you roll a 1 or a 2. It's not very promising. We're going to spend 2 more money. Finding a dragon's teeth. It's a D8 +1 to our combat roll. I think that's what we'll end up using against the leech here. So D8 versus a D6. He's a +2, so he's a 6. We get a +1, so we're a 5. So options. Skills are all used up. We don't have money for more cards. So we can take the hit, which means we reduce one of our values down. Or we just return to the village. And then the combat doesn't get the hit in. So once we return to the village, we get to regain our lost hit points. We can empty our pack. We'll get rid of these 2 bounties to give us 2 extra turns. We do see what our other bounty was. So we need bandits and land, which we do have down here. So my options are pretty slim. So we're going to take a move action, which allows our companion to move. We're going to move him down to the field. We'll take another move action to move here. Let our bird come down this direction. Pick a fight in the harbor with the skeleton. So he's a D4 +2. We'll go ahead and use our Father's Whip, which is D6 and ranged. So we are a 4 and a 1. We've defeated him. We'll get 2 coins. And he goes down here. We'll spend our 2 coins on an advantage card Let's see, I'll use that one spell. I know to increase the power of my weapon, so +2 to combat roll or +3 while not in a terrain. We're going to use our heroic skill. While in the harbor, move to any other space but the village. So we'll jump on the boat and go down to the land, which is where we had our companion move. There's no terrain in this area. So we're going to start with fighting the kobold. He's a D4 +1. We're now back in with our companion, so we get our regular D6 and a D4. So he got a 2, which moves up to a 3. And we've got a 5, so the kobold goes away. We're collecting the bounty. So that means another monster will come out here. And we found an owlbear that will be going to the swamp. All right, so our next fight. Well, we do see what the next bounty is going to be. So the swamp and bandits. We're going to fight the Hellhound next. D4 +1. So he ends up with a 4. We end up with a 4, and we win ties. So there's another one. So we've got 2, 4, 6, 8 down, 7 to go. And now, got the Plan of Eden. So he's going to be a 3, 4, 5, 6. And of course, I forgot my money on that one. And I think the earlier 1, 2. All right, so we just need a 6 this time. Getting a 6, winning ties, 2 coins, and he goes back in the bag. Nothing else we can do. Well, we can spend 2 money to look at another advantage card. So that didn't work like I had hoped. So I hit it in the face with this stone. +1 to a combat roll. And 6, since we can hold 5 cards. Threw those in the wrong spot. I guess it's time to play a little dirty. So we're throwing some mud to get +1 to combat roll. All right, ending our turn, we roll a D8. Getting a 3. So if you roll a 1 or 2 during combat, add 5 to that roll. Reset there, and the turn dial. So we're at a Hunter's Moon, so all monsters get +2. And another DM event, getting a 5. All right, the DM brings us from my cold, dead hands. Every hunter has a go-to weapon, and yours was handed down to you by your grandmother, a legendary hunter. Saved your life more times than you can count, and from the look in this goblin's eyes, you can see he's itching to add it to his arsenal. Sure, you've dealt with your share of ill-tempered, grab-happy goblins, but this guy looks like one you'd rather avoid. It's not to be, however. He moves like a flash to separate you from your prized possession. So we've got to roll for strength. Success, you're strong enough to break the goblin's grip on your weapon. Family heirloom is safe for another day. Failure, the goblin overpowers you, lose 1 advantage card. So our strength is a 6, so we need anything but a 6. And we're good. So starting turn, we will spawn and gather twice. So we get a monster at location 1. Finding a Hellhound. And that's our advantage card, which is the companion. He's in our spot, so we get 2 money. Actually, I'm sorry. That was a 3, which is a wild. Yeah, we don't want the 2 money. I think we want the fairy monsters. And our second roll is a 1 for that, so that's going to get us our 2 money. And a monster in area 7, which is a wasteland. So we found a goblin. All right. First thing we're doing is a move action, bringing our companion with us. Plants of Eden, picking a fight, so he's a 3, 4, 5 total. We get a D6 and a D4. We got a 4. So unfortunately, we need to +1 to this combat roll, so we're playing a little dirty. He goes back to the bag, and we gain 2 coins. And we'll go ahead and spin 2 for an advantage card. The Wasted Mace, a D12, and 1 free reroll. We're going to use our Fairy Monsters to bring in an Owlbear, which is a D8, and he's going to get +1 since we're bringing him into a location with a dungeon. And we're going to use our D12 with 1 free reroll. And since we're not using our basic weapon, our bird cannot assist. So that's awesome. A D8 +2, so he ended up with a 10 there. And we've got a 4 with a free reroll. All right. I'm sorry, he's got a 9. A D8 +1. We are just a 8, so we are losing that. Except part of the dungeon's going to fall on him. All right, so we're getting +1 to our combat. So now we're 9 on 9 and we win ties. So not the way we had hoped. So we hit it in the face with this stone. So we're going to get 2 coins from that. We're in the field, so we're collecting the bounty on that. He goes back in the bag. Another monster comes out. And that's a Bone Banshee. And he'll be showing up in Area 7. Wasteland is very busy. And I forgot we're at a Hunter's Moon, so he was at +2. So that just means we need to spin this one. So we use some magic to increase the power of our weapon. So we can use multiple of these cards as a response. So we ended up with +3 on ours, making us all 11s. And our last bounty that can come out is in the bay with beasts. So we're going to take an action to move. Bring our bird with us. Last action, we're going to hunt. Finding, of course, Plant of Eden. We'll spend 2 money for an advantage. Did I mention I put strict 7 all over my weapon for +3 in combat? We'll end our turn. So our heroic benefits. Getting a D8. So that's going to get us, we can make a free stat roll. Then turn the dial, so we're on our last turn, unless we do something about that. So we will spawn and gather twice. So Area 5 is going to get a vampire. We get an alchemy, which we are going to use for fairy monsters. And our next roll is going to be a wild, which, yeah, we'll get 4 wings, so Flightimus to return to the village. In Area 9, the swamp is getting a knoll. So we're going to start, we're taking on the Plants of Eden. 3, 4, 5 is his skill. We get our D6 and D4, ending up with a 7. So that gets us 2 coins. He goes back in the bag. Then we're going to use fairy monsters. Since we're in the harbor, we want a beast from somewhere. So we're just going to bring in the Hellhound from next door, since we've already beaten up one of those. Then do our attack versus a D4, +1. So it becomes a 5, and we are a 4. So we are going to spend 2 coins to re-roll one of our dice. Getting a 5, so that'll be enough for us to take out this Hellhound, which will get us our 2 coins back. He goes back in the bag. We collect another bounty. And another monster is going to come out. This is going to be an owlbear. And he will be heading to the den. We will then use our Wingso Flightimus to return to the village. Our companion stays where he's at. We will turn in our 3 bounties. So just for the flavor text, slobbering critters aren't even waiting for the ships to come in before attacking the sailors. They're swimming out and boarding their boats before they can even dock. So we took care of those. The creature was stronger than my husband was brave, and it's been gnawing on his femur for 3 weeks. I tried to kill it myself, but if I die, who will take care of the baby? And then something keeps stealing the cherry pies from my windows. Thought it was my pup, Mr. Tunkers, until I found his broken corpse covered in crumbs. Poor fella had been used as a napkin. So that will move this 3 spaces. 1, 2, and 3. We are going to spend 3 coins to get our 3 skills back. Then we'll spend an action with a coin to move 2 spaces. Spend another action to move into the wasteland where we have 4 monsters to deal with. So let's pick our order here. So we've got a Minotaur and a Bone Banshee. Both will be getting a bonus because of the dungeon in there. Got a Hellhound. That'll get a bonus because of the terrain. And then the Goblin will not get the additional terrain bonus. So we will start going after the Bone Banshee. Will be a D4 +1. We're just going to use our basic dice. So it's got a 2 + 1, ends up with a 3, and we've got 7. So the Bone Banshee gets us 2 coins. And we'll fill up another spot over here. Next, we're going after the Hellhound. We're going to be doing the same dice roll. So it's a 1 + 1 plus another 1 for the terrain. So it got up to a 3. We are at a 7, which will get us 2 coins. We've already taken care of a Hellhound. So we'll put this down into our specialty hides. And just to explain those, once we get 3 specialty hides in here, we can transform a monster into a D6 class that's already on the board with us. Transformation only lasts for 1 round of the fight, so we can make that monster anything we want it to be for that fight, and it's only a D6. So before our next fight, we'll spend 2 money, get an advantage card. So that wasn't supposed to kill it, just get it in a better position to trigger my trap, so +3 to combat. The Goblin's going to be a D6 +2. We're going to go ahead with our basic attack here. So it ends up with a 4. We've got a 10. We'll get 2 coins. We've killed a Goblin before. So with that club, we can put it down in our specialty hides. And now we're on to the Minotaur, which unfortunately we've beat up before. So that's going to be a D10 +1. And we're just going in with our basic attack. So he turns to a 3, and we've got 5, so we beat him up. 2 money. We'll use that over here on our wild hides. So when both are filled, you may convert one wild hide to any specialty hide, return the other one to the bag. Well, we'll convert that over to here and put the mushroom back in our bag. We'll spend 2 coins to get an advantage card, finding a critical. So thanks to the slippery terrain, that big monster is now a big monster. What critical does is it doubles our existing roll. So for our third action, we're going to move into the swamp with our companion, where we have 4 monsters. No terrain in there with us. So we've got a Gnoll, D6 plus 2, and a Werewolf, D10 plus 1. An Owlbear, which is a D8, and the Plants of Eden, which is just a 4, because we only have one of those on the board yet. And just something about the Plants of Eden, they are considered Guardian classes, so not a monster, so we can't use the specialty hides to turn that into something else. We do want to kill both of these, so Gnoll and an Owlbear we still need on that board. The Werewolf isn't, so that's probably what we'll use the hides for. So we will fight them in this order, starting with the Plants of Eden. He's just a 4, doesn't roll dice against us. We end up with a 10, so 2 coins, and back in the bag. Second fight is the Owlbear, which is a D8. We'll take our basic attack again. So we've got a 6, he's got a 7. We'll just use our skill, giving us a +1 to our combat roll so that we're tied and we win ties. So that's going to get us 2 coins. And go in our hide collection. Then we've got the Gnoll, which is a D6 plus 2. And I think I'll go ahead and use our D8 on this one. So he's going to end up with an 8. We are 5. So we'll use our, did I mention I put strict 7 all over my weapon to give us +3 to combat. So we're going to be an 8 on 8. Which would give us 2 coins, but we are maxed out at 10. Got 4 more monsters to take care of. We are going to spend 2 to get an advantage card. Finding who knew skipping stones off a monster's face could be so much fun. +2 to our combat roll. And we'll spend another 2 for another one. Nature's Tongue, a D20. Gain an extra coin if you win the combat roll. Then we are going to spend our specialty hides. These go back in our bag. We can make this a D6 monster of our choice. So we do have a vampire on the board. So we just need to get to that spot. Spider, we don't have. Kobold, we don't have. And the orc. All right. So the vampire is the only thing we don't have out there. So we're going to say this is going to be an orc, which is a D6. We're going to use our basic dice. So 3 on 6. We said this was an orc. So we will fill it up on that location. That did get us 2 coins there. We'll end our turn, getting our heroic benefits, getting a 5, which is double your next combat roll. Turn the dial, going to round 8. Start of turn. See what monsters we can get on the board. So area 8. Down at the pass, we're going to get a werewolf. and we get a wild, we are going to go for, we'll go fair monsters. And then we get 2 coins and the monster in area 6, which is going to be a kobold, which we kind of need there, but it also fulfills that. So starting our turn, we're going to use that to bring the kobold over to the swamp. It'll be a D4. We're just doing our base attack on him. He got a 3, we ended up with an 8. So while I would like him for the swamp, that's how we win. So first action, we're going to go hunting. See what we find here. We find a goblin. Totally good with that. So he's a D6 plus 1. We're going to use our basic attack. So he ends up with a 2. Some terrible rolls there, but we do have a 3. We'll get 2 money, but we're going to turn him in for a bounty. So he goes back in. Another monster is going to come out. This time we get a skeleton popping up in area 3, which is the field. So our next action is a move. We're going to use a horse. So 1, 2, move our companion there. Second action, we're going to move again, trying a horse. So we've got to be able to stealth past this guy. So we need a 4 or less. And we got a 5. So that did not work. We lose the coin. And we just made it to the field. But we will go ahead and fight the skeleton. He's going to be D4 plus 2. The terrain bonus will not come in effect. We're going to go ahead, try our blowgun out. So that gets us a D4. And if we roll a 1 or a 2, we get plus 10 to the roll. So he rolled a 4, which means he's ending up with a total of 6. Because it's a D4 plus 2. And since we rolled a 1, we get plus 10. So we end up with an 11. So we beat up the skeleton. That doesn't help us with anything there. So we'll add that to our specialty hide. We've used our actions. So we will go ahead, spin 2 to replace our advantage card, finding a club there. Since my weapon didn't do the job, I'm down to using this big stick to give us plus 3 combat roll while in a terrain. So resetting. Well, actually, before we reset, we're going to make a free stat roll. See if we can increase something down here. Rolling a 4, so we can move our intelligence from a 3 to a 4. Now, the heroic benefits, getting a 7. Destroy a monster in your space. Gain no benefit from that monster. All right, turn dial. Another DM event. We are seeing story 77 come up. All right. How sure are you? Are you sure? All right. This has to be the worst mimic you've ever seen. Sure, it looks exactly like a treasure chest, but there are a few things about it that arouse your suspicion. Not the least of which is the way it keeps saying things like, "Psst, treasure chest, buddy. Right here, pal. Come on, get the sweet treasure." You know, it's just as likely to inflict bodily harm as to dispense any valuables. But gold is getting harder and harder to come by. Besides, it seems lonely. And hardened hunter or not, you've always been a sucker for a sob story. So place the Mimic token in a space with hills terrain. Each time a hero enters that space, they may attempt to take gold from the Mimic, which is a roll for intelligence. So we'll take his token and put him in with the heals. And we are at a Hunter's Moon, so monsters get +2. Start of our turn. We get to move our companion to our space, and we get a monster in Area 6, which is where the treasure's at. So we got a vampire there. Next roll. We get a monster in Area 3, which is where we are at. So we just found a mushroom, which is not the green monster we're looking for. And 4, we get some alchemy. I think for this time we're going to get the grape jib juice, gain an extra action. So we are going to attempt to move to the den, which means we have to pass a stealth test, which we did. So that was an action. We go into the den. We've got 3 monsters. We've got a mummy, which is a D8 +2. Then it's getting +1 for the terrain. An owlbear, which is a D8 plus the terrain. And then the one monster we care about, the vampire. Just a straight up D12. So let's see. We will fight in the order of vampire, owlbear, and then the mummy. So D12, we are going to use our Nature's Tongue, a D20, gain an extra coin if you win the combat roll. All right, so it got a 10, we got a 5. And for that, I think we'll use our critical so we can double our roll. Thanks to the slippery terrain, that big monster is now a big monster kebab. And actually, taking that back, got to remember they get +2. So we are going to spend 2 coins to re-roll our die. Getting a 19. That's a little bit better. So the vampire is now beat up. We get 2 coins back. And now the only thing we're looking for is a spider. All right, so we're going to go ahead and spend 2 coins to find an advantage card. Getting a butterfly sword. It's a D8 and ranged. So the owlbear is a D8, and we'll just go with our basic attack. The owlbear is a 4 +2, ending up with a 6. We are a 3 and a 2. We'll use a skill. Since our skill value is a 6, we can stack skills up to 2 maximum. We'll use brute force to give us +1 to this combat roll. So in ties, we win ties. So the owlbear is defeated. We'll get 2 coins and then use that for a wild hide. And now we're fighting the mummy, which is a D8 +2, plus another 2. Let's see. Don't want to change anything else here. Nope, we'll just go with that. All right, so it's a 5, so that's going to come out to a 9. With this +2 for the coin and +2 for the moon. We are a 6 currently. So we will use, since my weapon didn't do the job, I'm down to using this big stick, +3 to combat while in a terrain. We're in an area of 2 terrain, so that's going to take us up to a 9. Defeat him, giving us 2 coins. Then we can use that in for a wild hide. And this is a May ability, so I'm going to wait a little bit on that. Going to do a hunt for an action. And finding a skeleton. And with that, we're going to use our skill with animal handling. While hunting, send the hunted monster to another space and hunt again. We'll just throw it up there. That's going to give us our spider we're looking for. All right, for the win. This is a D8 plus 2 plus another 2. We will go ahead and spin 2 coins to draw an advantage card, getting us a Dagger of the Dead, D6, plus 3 to combat, roll against undead, not an undead, but oh well. So basically it's a D8 plus 4, and we're rolling our base dice here. So with its D8, it's going to end up with a 10. We have a 7 showing. And that wasn't supposed to kill it, just get it in a better position to trigger my trap. So the trap has been sprung. Take care of the spider. Getting 2 coins. And filling up our hide board. So that will be a victory for our little Slayer hero. And that's the basics of how to play D6, Dungeons, Dudes, Dames, Danger, Dice, and Dragons with Dale. As always, I hope you enjoyed this playthrough. If so, please click on the like button below and be sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching.